Today, I have a special guest, my friend and former client, well, actually, current client, Aaron Sweeney is joining me. Aaron is the founder of Talus Consulting Group, which is a boutique search firm dedicated to recruiting top level technical professionals. And over the years, in fact, over 25 years now, Aaron has helped a wide breadth of customers ranging from early stage startups to Fortune 100, 500 companies to fill their critical staffing needs. So Aaron and I have had the pleasure of working together, not working with us, but working together over the last couple of months. So we're going to talk about Aaron's story, and then we're going to talk about some of the specific things that he learned in the Relevant Recruiter program to help him leverage his 25 years of experience to generate more buzz around his business. And if you are listening and watching with us live, go into the chat, interact with us here. Let us know where you're watching from right now. Give us those like buttons so more people can see this. Aaron, thank you and welcome to the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I know we've been talking about this for a little while, so it's nice to finally be able to do this and get it done. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate making the time and I'm excited to be here with you. So give us a little background. I mean, how did you get into the recruiting industry all the way up until, when you started your company? How'd you get into this whole place?
Yeah, like a lot of people that are in recruiting, I didn't know a whole lot about recruiting when I started out. I played college football, so I got a little bit recruited back then. So I knew that people would get recruited to play sports, and I knew that there were headhunters in the market. But my first job in recruiting was for a company called Aerotech, and we were placing like technical contractors, and just wasn't even familiar that was even a job that you could do. But leading up to it, the experience that really helped me, flourish in recruiting, I had some outside sales experience for another company. I was selling long distance to commercial accounts. So, I had to deal with rejection, setting up appointments, both in an office format where I'm around people and they got to hear what you'd say, all the way through, going in, doing door to door, and just sort of being able to think on your feet and try to go through a successful sales call. So I had some of that outside sales experience. And then I'd also lived and worked abroad before I recruited. So I was in South Korea for a while teaching English, and then went to Thailand, did a little bit of solo backpacking. And so with that experience, got pretty good at, living with ambiguity and uncertainty and introducing yourself to complete strangers. And then, just combining sort of those two experiences when it came time to recruit, I just fell into it. And, I just, not to downplay the role, but it was kind of easy. I got to talk to people for free, and help them find jobs. And so it was super rewarding. And so that's how I started out. The next 10 years I'd worked for, I think, 3 other companies. One of those companies was another startup, and co-founded that with a buddy of mine that I met at the first job, Aerotech. And, they're doing great right now. His company is amazingly successful. But, when we started, we were really young and kind of made every mistake in the book. And so that was a really great learning experience for me that I ultimately carried with me when it came time to start my own company. And then, I had a few other stops. The most recent one before starting Talus in 2008 was with a company called Redmond Technology Partners. And I was there for about 5 years doing staffing sales. So, 180 model where I was doing all the BD, and then I would partner with a recruiting team. And, at that time I had an amazing recruiter that I worked with. Her name was Jody, and, she was the delivery end to all the business development that I was doing. Right. And we had a lot of success, but every once in a while it'd get a little bit bumpy when I didn't always have access to the recruiter or recruiting team that I wanted. And so I wasn't totally in charge of my own destiny, and kind of gave me the itch to maybe go out and start my own company where you'd have a little bit more control over your surroundings and who you'd have an opportunity to work with. And again, she was amazing and, one of the best recruiters I've ever worked with, but, just kind of got the itch to go off and do something on my own. And that kind of brought me around to, 2008. And at that point, started thinking about doing it. And I'd had somebody that I'd worked with before in the second recruiting job that I had. Her name is Kendall, and that's ultimately who became my partner. And that's when we started the company in 2008.
Nice. And for those of you listening with us live right now, we're interviewing Aaron Sweeney. He's the founder of Talus Group. Go into the comments right now. Let us know what industry you're focusing on or what positions you recruit for. Aaron's focused in the IT space here. So Aaron, you just mentioned that, a lot of this starting your own business kind of came from you wanting to control, the process a little bit more. I always love to ask this question, but what was your biggest challenge when you started? Like, what kind of slapped you across the face and went, "Ooh, this isn't as easy as I thought, maybe"?
Well, for one, starting a company in 2008 was insane. And so when I quit my job, I think it was like July of 2008, and the real estate market took a little bit of a dip, but it wasn't being publicly announced like on the major news channels like CNN that, hey, we're about ready to embark on the biggest recession since the Great Depression, and that happened after I quit my job. So first of all, I was starting in a really like downturn market, so it
Right.
was much more difficult than I thought. But I would say, some of the challenges just it it never goes as smooth as you'd like it. We started out, just paying ourselves like $1,000 a month because you're trying to keep all the capital in the company because we're going to do contract placements. And, that takes a lot of wear and tear on you. And there's a lot of hours, you've got, either your family at home it's just a really, really stressful time because there's so much riding on your shoulders to be successful. So I would say that is just sort of the shock and awe of, hey, this is more difficult than what I thought it would be. I mean, when you're doing it for another company and you've got all the infrastructure around you and you've got, you're getting commission, but you're getting a base. But when you're just out on your own and you're essentially living off 100% commission, it's a completely different animal. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges initially, just getting accustomed to, hey, you live off of what you hunt and kill, and
Right.
it's not going to come from anywhere else but you. And so at the end of the day, it's up to you to make it happen.
Right. Right. Now, you already kind of touched on this, but I want to dig into this a little bit deeper, which is you mentioned your experience of kind of backpacking, through, I think you said Thailand or
Yep.
Korea, on your own. And then you're also like a former college athlete. Like, what of those, like that life experience, do you feel like has come in to be helpful as you've navigated being an entrepreneur?
Just the desire to succeed. Like when I started playing football, I was a walk-on, and so I was kind of unknown, and you have to show up every day and scrap, and every day is a battle, and you're either fighting for your roster spot, or in my case, fighting to get a scholarship. And there's always somebody else out there that is either bigger, stronger, faster, or
Mhm.
that's going to come and try to take your position. And so I look at it the same way in business. I mean, you can't get complacent. I mean, there's always a company out there that it might be better, is going to work harder, or has better connections. And so it really keeps you on your guard, and that mentality really helps you, keep your foot on the gas. The stuff with traveling, it can be a little bit intimidating when you do it on your own.
Yeah.
And once you start doing it, you get comfortable with it, and you just get comfortable being uncomfortable, then it just becomes more natural to step out of your comfort zone. And
Right.
then that just all plays into, the entrepreneurial experience.
Yeah. Well, I can really relate with that whole walk-on experience. As you know, I was a walk-on at the University of Nevada and played football, and so it's very similar to you. Is like, you're always low man on the totem pole. You can change where you're at on the depth chart in any single practice, basically. And so, when you're the guy that's behind kind of everybody else, yeah, you got to have same mentality I use in my business. Is like, I always feel like there's somebody chasing me. There's always somebody coming after the job, and this, that, and the other. So I can totally relate with that. And you said the word mentality, and actually one of the very first videos I created on my YouTube channel was the walk-on mentality, and just the mindset that I use from being a walk-on from business. So I love that. So you've been in the game for 25 years now, Aaron. I mean, what are some of the things that you've seen change in the recruiting industry in your time? And what are some of the things that you've maybe done to adapt to some of those changes?
Yeah, when I first got started, I mean, half the battle was just figuring out where people were at, like who your customers were and where they were at. I mean, you know, we used to pay money for org charts, or at least I did. I'd find somebody that I could get to print off an org chart. And I mean, that was half the battle. That was your treasure map of just figuring out where people were at. Now, with all these different online tools that we have, it's not so much about figuring out where people at. It's about now, how do we keep them engaged? And so
Right.
what once went from a very like high touch in-person type model, or at least that's how I used to do it. I mean, I would take people out to lunch, I would take them out to dinner, breakfast, just be in person as much as I possibly could. And I'm still a huge believer in that model, and I still try to do that today. But now with everything online, you can do some of that connection more remotely. And now how do you distinguish yourself? I mean, if you're going to go meet with somebody in person, and somebody else doesn't want to put the energy into things to do that, you're definitely going to stand out. But if the new model is more about doing it online, now you got to adapt and figure out how you can be present online and stay relevant and just be top of mind for your customers. And so that's really how I've seen things adapt, is just going from what was once more of a in-person model to adapting to building relationships, in an online format, and all these different tools that we have and ways of doing it. Just trying to bundle that all together, and that's really one of the biggest things that I've seen evolve.
Right. Now, one of the things I know that, just from working with you, is you take a lot of passion in your clients being satisfied. Like, what are some of the steps that you're taking? Obviously, the quality of talent that you're bringing to the table, but what are the other things that you're doing that you feel like is creating a good client experience?
You have to really, really get to know your clients. I mean, and take the time, do the legwork to really understand what they're all about. I mean, I'm a big believer that you get back what you put in. And when they see you doing that, there's so many other recruiters that aren't going to take that step. When you put the energy into really investing into your client, not only just the time that you spent, but really getting to understanding what they do, they will see that and they will reward you. I mean, I've got a situation or an example where, there's a client that I was working with. It was actually somebody in HR who, I met a while back and have really seen her kind of grow through her career. And, we did a great job of staying in touch. And, the opportunity arose where she had a need. They needed to hire like a VP of software engineering. And so, she kind of dropped this VP level search in my lap. And, it was right at a time when she was getting ready to go on vacation, and it wasn't necessarily a confidential search, but there was some they just wanted to be thoughtful around how they onboarded this search. And so I didn't really have access to her internal team. She just wanted me to work directly with her and then the company president. So she's getting ready to go on vacation, and she invested a lot of trust in me to do that. But it was an e-commerce company. They had about 6 or 7 locations, and they had a brick and mortar play as well. So I went to every location, and I actually went to one of their locations out of state, kind of made it a field trip, jumped on a train, took my family. It was kind of a field trip, but it was a business trip.
Yep.
When they found out that I did that, and I sunk all that energy into the search, not only did they reward me with, that initial VP search, but, the business that I got in years to come after that, and then how they introduced me to other presidents in that market segment. So it's just a real great testament that, you get back what you put in. And if you do those extra steps, you will get rewarded over time. And so, I just, that's one example, but, I try to go to that depth wherever I can with clients in different ways.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I think in today's world, it's so easy to kind of just get stuck with all the technology because everything's so easy. But I think that personal touch, like you said, showing up to the clients. Curious if those of you that are listening, how many of you guys are doing client visits and actually showing up to your client doorsteps like that? I think that's just I just shows I care, right? I think that's amazing that you're taking that extra step and showing up that way.
Yeah.
So kind of transitioning into some of our work together, I know that you'd been following me for a while. We had an initial conversation, I think a year or two before our second conversation where you eventually moved forward. But, share with the audience, if you can, like what was going on, in your business that made you go, yeah, you know what, I think it's time for me to work with Donnie now.
So I think deep down, I probably knew that I always should be doing it. So I remember when and I've teased you about this. I remember when I first started seeing your videos, like, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And at first I'm like, who is this guy?
Right.
Like, and
I think everybody says that.
Yeah. but I started to get respect. I'm like, this guy is showing up, and so I said that I kind of started, gaining more respect for you. And then I think I saw that you did this post about, is it Chris Auld is the coach?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then I'm like, oh man, he plays football, and so, we started to connect because I learned a little bit more about you personally. And then and that was probably 3 years ago. And then, I started becoming more aware that people were doing a lot more like online promotion and advertising. And I kind of knew that, hey, I need to take a look at this and get more educated. And so I think you and I did we did a call, and, the call went really good. And I was super comfortable with what you were talking about. And then I just got, I didn't pull the trigger. I thought, hey, I'm just going to keep doing it the way that I've always been doing it. And I was having a lot of success,
Right.
kind of doing it my more traditional way. And then, you would keep making postings, and like every couple of months you would post content where it's almost as if you were speaking directly to me. You talk about like a challenge that, hey, if you're experiencing these challenges, or are you experiencing these challenges, you might want to try this. And I'm like, man, this guy's like speaking directly to me. And, um, deep down, I knew that I wanted to do some coaching. And, it's like when you're out on your own, sometimes it's like, your ego gets in the way, and it's like, hey, do I really want to get a coach and be accountable to somebody? And, you come up with all the excuses in the book not to do something. But deep down, I knew that it was probably something that I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, I just kind of got out of my own way. And I'm like, I've been seeing your posts for like 5 years. I'm like, this is the guy that I want to roll with. And so called you up and learned more about the program, and away we went.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I think I always love to hear that, because I know a lot of people follow me for a while, and then wondering who the heck this guy is. And it's awesome to hear that story and experience. And I think you said something that's really powerful, which is the ego, which my ego's gotten me in trouble plenty of times. Right. And so much of it is like, we want to just prove that, hey, I can do this on my own. And I think there's just no loss. And I mean, I work with a coach 24/7, because I'm always trying to sharpen my sword and improve my skills. And I think this is also, I think coaching is like obviously a very new trend, kind of that's out there, right? I think if you rewind even 5 years, there's not a bunch of coaches out there. Now you can find a coach on every corner. And I think you have to do a good job of doing due diligence there. But I think the other thing too is you identifying something that you weren't trying to improve a skill set that you already knew. It was like a whole new set of skills and tapping into some things that were unknown to you, which I really honor you for taking that leap. What are, talking about some of the specific improvements, one of the things we talk about in terms of differentiation, in the program, how do you feel like you've been able to kind of articulate your message better to your clients after going through the program?
Oh, 100% better. I mean, one of the things as I remember sort of in the beginning of the program, I mean, you get taken through a series of steps to where it really helps you understand what your target market is. And, I kind of thought I knew what my target market was. And then I started going through this, and some of the exercises that you go through and the questions that you have to ask yourself, and then the messaging that you're going to come up with really helps you understand either where you are or where you want to be. And, I think that was huge, figuring that out for sure.
Yep. And what about like on the, business development outreach and business in kind of the prospecting stuff on LinkedIn? Like, how has that made an impact for you?
Oh, totally. I mean, the automation piece has been key. I mean, I used to be afraid of automation. I mean, I really prided myself on the high touch, manual, custom message to everybody. And I just didn't know that there was a way to integrate automation where it could still be kind of custom and it can be really tasteful. And that's been huge, because like right now I'm really big on, taking care of the existing customers that I do have. And when you're able to dial up automation, you got like a BD arm going for you, almost a virtual BD arm, the way you want it, and really conveying your message. And so that's something that I wasn't doing before. And, the meetings, the new customers, the candidate relationships that I'm getting out of it. I mean, it's been huge. It's been a game changer.
Yeah, love it. And I think you said something that I think everybody thinks about automation, which is like, it's spammy, it won't work. Like, I don't know if there's an answer to this, but in your own words, like, how would you differentiate that we're not just connecting and pitching services, but we're finding unique ways to get people into dialogue? Like,
totally. I mean, what I did was I looked at everything that I would get in the way of, people reaching out to me trying to sell something, and the worst that I felt was being offered, online. And I would gauge that as like, hey, that's just how it's done. And you have a choice in how you want to do it.
right.
And the tools that you give us allow you to be very, very targeted in a way that I didn't even know existed. And so, I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, you can still be very, very unique, very custom, and really differentiate yourself from the way others are doing. I mean, you're still really, really in control of the messaging, and
Right.
so that's one of the things that I appreciated the most about it.
Yep. Oh, thank you, Randall. Appreciate your feedback there. going into like the next step, obviously we use the automation, to drive conversations, also to drive and build an audience that
Yep.
now is there for our content. Before we get into content results, what were your apprehensions? What were your fears? What were your concerns about putting yourself out there with content?
Dude, that was a real like eye opener. So one of the reasons why, I was dragging my feet on, even moving forward is I knew the content piece was coming. I knew that, hey, you're gonna have to put yourself out there, you're gonna have to post, you're probably gonna end up doing videos. And I was thinking, I mean, you just come up with so many reasons not to do it. And you start coming up with some really, really compelling reasons, like in your head, like that you believe. And really what it comes down to, it's just fear. You just don't want to put yourself out there. You don't want to be uncomfortable. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. I've got a successful company. The idea of being good at something and in your element and in your zone, and then stepping completely outside of your comfort zone, it can be a little bit intimidating, and it's tough to admit that. But once you kind of stare it down in the mirror and you're like, okay, this is what's keeping me from doing this, then it's like, back to that competitive mentality with like,
Right.
walking on to play football. It's like, hey, I've done other challenging things before. I can take this step. And so you just get in and roll with it, and you start coming up with content, and you rip the Band-Aid off and you go for it, and you realize, hey, that wasn't so bad. And
Yeah.
then you get more comfortable doing it, and then you get to the point where you actually kind of enjoy it,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Well, and I know from being in the program, because almost everybody else is apprehensive about content. And
totally, yeah.
I know your message to everybody that's listening right now, they're probably going, yep, that's me too. I mean, it's a huge challenge, but just like you heard Aaron, I mean, when you step into it, there's great opportunities. What were some of the things that, maybe we did together or you did personally to help overcome the fear?
You just got to take that first step, and so a great way to start out is, if you haven't done it, like just do a quick little video on like what you do, like,
Right.
30 seconds, 45 seconds, whatever it is, and just let that thing rip. Just like, hey, hey, wanted to introduce myself, here's what I do, reach out if you have these type of needs. And that's a great starting point, just to like rip the Band-Aid off and go. And then really just be consistent with it,
Yeah.
and when we're when we're in your program, you've got people that are a couple years of experience, 30 years of experience, just all different levels of experience trying the same thing. So you're seeing other people step out of their comfort zone. You're seeing some people that are really, really good at it, and you can kind of climb under their wing and get pointers from them. And so it's really just being open to trying to do it and giving yourself a chance to step out of your comfort zone. And then, you'll realize that it's not that big of a deal. And
Right.
honestly, like, if you're self-conscious, I mean, I think there's probably two different camps of people. There's either the people that are doing it, that are really good at it, and they all started from scratch at some point. And so they're not going to be critical of you. They're going to be rooting for you because they're like,
Right.
hey, I started from scratch. And then there's the people that are like, yeah, I should probably be doing that. And they're not doing it yet,
Right.
And so it's cool to, it's cool to kind of, move along with that journey, and, you get better at it over time. You certainly get more comfortable.
Right. Well, I mean, I think one of the things the listeners would like to, know is like, well, why would you do it? Right. I mean, okay, I'm going to go overcome all this fear, but like, what's the result of you doing that? Like, have you seen an impact from your
Totally.
efforts from content?
Totally. I mean, I have people that reach out I mean, people aren't always going to comment on your stuff. You're not going to, like, your customers see it. So, I've been doing this for about 6 months. Everybody that I go meet with in person, they're just like, I love your stuff. And they'll talk about specific posts. And these are some people that don't even like it or engage or comment on it. And, I know you've given some great examples of why that is,
Mhm.
but, so people are watching your stuff, or they do see your content, and they may not engage with it, but they do see it. And so it's really a great way for them to get to know you better. And, I even had one situation where, there's a guy out there in the market that, I kind of admire, and he's pretty active with his content. But I remember he posted a story once about just the power of being patient, or, being patient, and, maybe where he made some mistakes where he hadn't been patient before in the past. And, I was thinking about it, and, I've got a lot of those same experiences. And then I've got a lot of like clients and candidates that I've worked with where I've seen them either do really well by being patient or not patient enough. And so, I just made a post one time kind of speaking to that, and it totally resonated with that person. And, he reaches out. He's like, "Hey man, I love the post, and I'd love you to be a part of my conference." And it's like, I've got an opportunity to maybe do some speaking out of that. And I have people that reach out all the time and just mention that they've seen it. So your audience is out there. Your clients are seeing this stuff. They may not always publicly comment, but they are, and you get a ton of value out of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you said about your experience with me, right, is how many years did you consume my content before you became a client, so to speak, right? And I think that's the thing that I love your comment about patience, because that's the game, right? Is it's not about like, yeah, you can win in the short term, but like when you're patient, you also win bigger in the long term by staying consistent with this effort. So
yeah.
And it's amazing you've already seen some of the results you've seen within the first 6 months, to get a speaking gig from somebody like that. It's
awesome. Oh yeah. I
mean,
totally. I had somebody reach out a couple of weeks ago that's like, "Oh yeah, I've been watching your stuff for, years now." And I'm like, "Well, I've been doing it for like 6 months," but they thought it was years just because they've been connecting with it. And, I ended up connecting with them, and, they were looking for some recruiting help. And, so it's your customers see it, and they're resonating with it. And it comes back to you. And so that's been way more successful than I thought it would be. Cause sometimes it's a little bit of a slow start. I mean, you got to stay with it. You're not going to see, you're not going to make your first post, your first video, and the phone starts ringing next week. Like, it's going to happen in the months to come. It's going to happen over time. But once you get it rolling, I mean, it really starts coming back to you.
Right. If you were to go back, and point to something specifically, was there like a specific aha moment for you, like a session that we had in the meeting room, or a video that you watched, or maybe a tool that you started implementing where you're like, yeah, this is a big shift, for you and your approach or perspective or things like that?
I'm going to go back to the automation just because that's been huge for me, because I wasn't doing it before. I think you showed me a video tool that I'm using to where now I'm sending out custom videos to clients. That's been huge. Like, I've gotten great response on that.
Yep.
The time management thing was good, because you're 100% correct on all the time management stuff that you talk about. That still is sort of like the next frontier for me. Like, I can get better on time management, but some of the tactics, or, that you taught with that's been huge. There's a lot of them, but those are 2 to 3 that really jump out for me.
Yep. No, I appreciate that. That's good. This is always the hardest question for me to ask, but it's my job to ask it. So how would you describe like our working relationship and like the personal touch that I bring, for me as a coach?
It's been good. I mean, to be totally transparent, I've talked with a few other coaches. I've actually hired people on, shorter stints. And a lot of times what I got was, they kind of like had a template or a program, and they would just kind of force feed what they knew. And with yours, I mean, you definitely have things that work for everybody, but you kind of tailor it to each person and you really meet them where they're at, and, you've got lots of people that are in the program, but you always made a point to make sure that you answered everybody's questions. If ever I had any questions, like outside of the program, when I was doing some of the work, you always got back to me. I mean, I don't think there was any time that you didn't get back to me, typically like within the same day. I think there was the one time where, I think I was having trouble with one of the automation tools, and I think what I'm talking. Like, I kind of screwed that pretty bad. And so I needed some serious hand holding to kind of unravel this mess that I made. And, you jump on a call and share screens. I think you even logged into the system to kind of help me troubleshoot it. And so, you're super, super hands-on, and there was never a point where I felt like, because you can get behind if you don't stay up on this stuff.
Yeah.
I always felt like you were kind of there just riding shotgun to help out with any point of the program. And, you're really good about kind of giving a nudge when people, or like when I would fall behind a little bit, but then at the same time, giving people breathing room if it was taking a little bit of time to catch up, or they needed to spend a little bit more time in one aspect. So very personalized, very tailored, not at all a one size fits all. And that's what I appreciated about it.
Awesome, man. I love you sharing that experience. That's awesome. I know we're waiting on kind of our big revenue results, which will come, but what are some of the other kind of results that you can trace back to this program specifically? I know you've mentioned some of them throughout, but
my mind shift is just a little bit different. being in the program, like all the networking that I've been able to do with some of the other people in the group, I mean, that's been super, super valuable. I mean, I stay in contact with, people that are, in the program right now and people that are done. Um, that's been huge for me. I love seeing what other people are doing and like the content, the videos that they're putting out. I mean, like I'm rooting for them,
Yep.
like I see, I think it's Ann Bedford. Like I think we started about the same time. I love seeing the progress that she's made. I mean, she's killing it. She did
Yep.
great in the beginning, but I love seeing how she's showing up. I think I'm talking to Isaac. He's the guy in your that
Yep. Yep.
and I'd never met him, but I saw his content and I just reached out. I'm like, dude, you're killing it. He lets it rip.
Yeah.
And so that's been really good. Just sort of the community and the access that I have to other people that are in the industry. I mean, I got people that are reaching out to me, asking me like, hey, how do you, I know that you do contract. How do we even set that up? And so it's given me an opportunity to give back to other people that want to learn from me. And then, it's given me access to other people that I didn't know otherwise that were out there. So that's been great.
Yep. I love it. I love it. A lot of people probably in a similar situation to you that have been sitting on the fence watching, wondering. I mean, what would you say to somebody who's thinking about, working with me and joining the Relevant Recruiter program?
Just do it. Don't wait like I did. I mean, I'm glad I did it when I did, but I could have started a lot sooner. And I'll chalk it up to probably it's probably one of the best decisions that I've made in terms of trying to advance my business. And so it's, if you're even thinking about it, like, just reach out. I mean, Donnie's not going to like, when you're ready, but he's not going to be pushy or anything like that. I would say just, reach out and, hear what he has to say. It's, like the recommendation I wrote for you, it's like one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I wish it started sooner.
I appreciate that, man. And anything else you want to share about the overall experience that we haven't hit on? Do you think would be important for somebody that's listening?
Yeah, I mean, it's, just the access that you get to like your network. I mean, just by working with you, like right now, I'm so much more aware of other tools that are out in the market. I mean, there's so much new stuff coming out, but by just joining, I had access to you, I had access to everybody else that was doing things that I wasn't doing. And so it really gave me more of like an abundant, open mind when it came to just being curious about what was happening in the market. And it just kind of helps you operate at a different tempo. And so, yeah, that's what I'd say about that.
Love it. What would you say are the biggest kind of daily practice changes, right? Like what maybe have been added to you talked about time management earlier, but like, what are some of the daily practices that you've had to kind of like shift into, to do this, execute this type of a system?
Yeah. Blocking out time, making time for everything. And so, once you get some of the outbound stuff going, you're going to get a lot of velocity. You're going to get people coming back to you. You want to make sure that you stay on top of that and stay engaged. And, so I've had to create some habits around, making sure that I allocate time for that. I'd probably say that's one of the biggest ones.
Love it. Love it. And what are your, kind of as we wind this thing down here, I mean, what are your future plans? What are you excited about for your business? Like what's next for Aaron Sweeney and Talus?
I really love, so I love the model that I have right now. I mean, one of the things we didn't talk a whole lot about was, when I first started the company, I had a partner and we had other recruiters and, it was a much bigger company. And then ultimately, I ended up doing this on my own. And then, but I was always accustomed to sort of like the 180 model. And then I went full desk and, I've really fallen in love with, pretty much just kind of doing everything on my own because I own the client relationship, the candidate relationship. Nothing gets lost in translation. And, you're just able to provide a much more white glove service. Getting better at what I'm doing. I've been doing it for a long time. And so there's some things that I do really, really well that I could just roll out of bed and roll with it and still be really successful. But, there's so much new emerging stuff happening in the market. I just want to be a really good student of what's happening in the market and see how good I can get at this. That's really my goal. I mean, I love doing it how I am, kind of keeping it small and high touch, but how can I kind of marry up this traditional grassroots, old school approach with some of these new techniques and combine that together and just kind of see where I can take this.
Yeah, I love that. You know, it's funny. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Alexis and I, for our oral marketing core values, one of ours is people driven for greatness. And that's something that we look for in our team and something we look for in our clients. And that's exactly what you just said, which is like, you're constantly trying to improve and get better, right? Improve and get better. And I think that that's the key, right? To entrepreneurship and building a business that you want, right? What the business that you want to look at every day when you wake up, I think is amazing.
Yeah.
What's, been in the game for 25 years. You have a successful business. You've had partners. You've scaled up, scaled down. You're winning right now. A lot of people would like to have success like you're having. Like, what's one piece of advice you would leave with the listeners?
Be tenacious and don't give up on yourself, because you're going to, self-doubt will creep in. Like when you're, if you're trying to go out on your own or scale out a business, I mean, you're going to have challenges. But, just have the faith that, just keep powering, keep your foot on the gas, and then make sure that you're upskilling all the time. That's really, really important. That's some advice that I give people. But the main thing is just, really having confidence in yourself. And that's not, and then putting yourself in a situation to succeed. I mean, as it relates to what I'm doing, the entrepreneurial journey, it can take a little bit of a toll on your family. And so you want to make sure that you put the pieces in place to be successful, and make sure that everybody that's important to you and that you really care about understands what you're doing and is on board with the journey that you're about to go on, because it can be a bit of a bumpy ride in the beginning, but the upside is once you break through to the other side and you start having success, the rewards are huge, and it's totally worth it.
That's phenomenal advice, man. That is excellent advice. Where can everybody find you online? Where can everyone connect with Aaron?
I'm on LinkedIn. Hit me up there.
All right.
Yep.
If you're watching live, go ahead and connect with Aaron Sweeney there. If you enjoyed this interview, go ahead and tap that like button. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We would appreciate that, so that way more people can view this as well. I appreciate you guys taking the time joining Aaron today and listening to his story and his journey in the Relevant Recruiter program. If you guys want to experience some of the things that he's experienced, if you've been watching me for a while, sitting on the fence, send me a direct message and we can talk about the same marketing system, business development system that we put together for Aaron. Put that together for you and your business right now. So send me a direct message, drop a comment. We can set up a meeting, just like Aaron said. Pretty easy meeting, pretty easy step to take from here. But Aaron, thank you so much for joining me today and dropping all the value, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, man. I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good. Everyone else, we'll be back next week for another live show. Thank you for joining Aaron and I today, and we'll see y'all soon.
All right, man. See ya.